Welcome to the Revel Fitness Podcast, episode 5. It's 5.
Yeah, it is 5.
It's hard to keep track. I don't know why. Today we're going to talk about conflict.
Yes.
And not conflict as in wars or anything like that, but as in somebody wants something and what they want is in opposition to what you want. And either somebody's got to give or somebody's got to hold their ground or
there's a compromise. There's lots of options,
yeah.
But
okay.
How do you handle it?
We'll go ahead and start with my latest example. So there's a guy who calls a studio and he wants us to buy ads, right? I am not convinced at all that the ads are going to work. He is convinced that he is going to sell me ads. And he's also convinced the ads work. So I don't think it's a worthwhile investment of my money. And he is a salesperson, and it is his job to convince me that it is. And so the problem I run into, and I think a lot of people do this, and I guess I was taught it as a kid, and I'm now thinking back on it, I'm looking at examples of where I was either told or implicitly taught to do this, but I'll give excuses that aren't the real reason, but that are reasonable enough that hopefully the person buys it. So I was just like, oh yeah, we don't have anything in our advertising budget right now, which is not strictly speaking true. We have
no advertising budget.
We have no advertising budget, but I am willing to spend money on advertising if it works. I was not convinced at all that this would work. So I told him we don't have any advertising budget. So then his response was, oh, I wish you would have told me that earlier before I told you this whole spiel. And then that's like kind of like getting caught in a lie, and you're like, ah, geez. So then I had to go through the rigmarole. I was like, okay, well, so then eventually we finally got to the heart of the matter, which is like, you don't sound like you're convinced it'll work. And it's like, I'm not convinced it'll work. Like, why would I spend any advertising money on anything but Google and Facebook? That's a little bit of inside baseball, but just the point is that I didn't think it would work. I should have said that from the start and then just stuck my ground if that's the way I wanted to go about it. But I find, like, in my own life, I'm always trying to like weasel around just upsetting the other person. And well, there's two parts of that, right? Mm-hmm. For one thing, they have no right to get upset if I don't want it, like especially in a sales transaction. So I have this unnecessary fear because first of all, if they get upset, they have no right to. Second of all, if they get upset, they're probably not going to get upset. Second of all, they're probably not going to get upset. They get dealt no's all day long, especially if you're a salesperson. So, but that permeates into other areas of my life all the time where I'm just supposed to tell somebody the truth. Just tell them the truth. It'll set you free. And instead I try to come up with all these other things, and I don't know, I guess it's programming, and I guess I've had experiences in the past where telling the truth does not go well, or the people who I was emulating did not tell the truth. And then I just emulated that,
Yes, I do. And I think that I have the same kind of experiences. So I probably did emulate as one person. I'm sure that there were many others that no, you emulated. We just acted, and the way that we acted, you picked it up, because most of our learning happens implicitly and not explicitly. We don't say, oh, when someone is pressuring you and you feel uncomfortable and there's a conflict, here, make up something. But I have had many instances when someone would say, oh, well, you could just tell them this, or you could just tell them that. I'm like,
yeah.
How about if I just tell them no?
Like, it's weird because in especially a sales instance, that person brought the request to you. You did not bring the request to them. So it's weird how, for a lot of people like myself, it gets twisted to where when somebody brings a sales proposition to me, suddenly I feel like I'm under pressure to do something. And like I am under pressure to be like, okay, yes. Instead, it should be they're under pressure to not... I'm not making exact sense, but do you know what I mean? Like they're the one bringing the proposition.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you if this is the point you were driving at, is that it gets turned on its head. Like you've not brought that into your life consciously, maybe subconsciously to learn this lesson or something, but unconsciously you have not asked them. You didn't pick up the phone and go, hey, do you sell ads on this or that? And can you tell me about it? Because I might be interested. that puts you in a much different position than you're just minding your own business and a salesperson calls you. I think we talked about it once on cold calling in another
I think
episode.
that's probably the habits, just practicing.
Just practice. I think it was practice. But when they cold call you, they are entering your life at their request.
Right.
They're trying to start a relationship. So by all rights, or our sense of justice, they should be the ones trying to not make you feel uncomfortable instead of the other way around. But instead, many of us, me included, and obviously you from what you just said, take it on that we don't want to hurt their feelings by telling them no.
Right.
Even though they should be more concerned or as concerned about making us uncomfortable if we need to say no, that they should help us be able to say no if that's what our choice is.
Well, I think that's the thing, is that money is involved.
Yeah.
So that person's livelihood depends on us saying yes. So it is literally their job to get us to say yes. And I think as a life skill, that is not taught enough. I don't know if it's taught at all.
I think some parents, some very aware people do teach, and some teachers teach it. But in general, I don't think we do.
Well, actually, let me rephrase. I think it is taught, but it's, how many times have you seen it taught in a way that it's not just like, I'm standing my ground and I'm gonna, if you don't like it, then F you. Like, there's got to be a middle ground to where you can stand your ground and say, no, I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think I'm a bad person, but it's just not what I want. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why. If you persist, I will continue to tell you the reasons why. And at some point, I'll be like, no. And then just we can move on. But this is done. So, like, I think that's the problem. I've never wanted to be that guy who's just like, F you, man. I'm going to do what I want. But I also am really sick of being the guy who can't say, no, this is not what I want, and these are the reasons why. And do you have anything to say to that? Yes or no? And if yes, then I'm like, well, I'm still not convinced. No. And then just be done.
I think there's a little bit of not knowing how to stand your ground without being offensive or aggressive.
Right.
But just to say, no, this is the decision I've made based on all the information that I have, and so I'm making this decision. Thank you for your input. It didn't change my mind. I'll use my Ingrid that I used to see once told me an instance of where she or somebody was married to someone and they wanted to go, her spouse wanted to go visit his family, and she was not comfortable there, and she just went, you know what? I'm not going to go this time. Well, of course you're going to go. You have to go. No, I love you very much, but I'm not going this time. And was able to just repeatedly, no matter how mad her husband got, no matter, what threats he made, or, how much guilt he tried to lay on her, she's like, yeah, I could feel that way, but I don't. So I'm not going this time. And that is something we really don't practice. We get many opportunities to practice it. And if we go back to what we talked about once before, like all the times that you feel uncomfortable being your inner soul going, here's a chance for you to practice this thing you don't know how to do. That's why we're uncomfortable. We don't really take that opportunity very often. I think you and I recently, because we're talking about these topics out loud with each other and broadcasting it to the world, it's in our, it's in our awareness a little bit more. I just banged
Unlike
the
microphone, which is completely out of awareness.
It didn't get out of my way. We're starting to practice it on purpose. And we can use all the changes that have been made at the studio as an example. We are making many changes. They are all for the good. And they actually, if any individual sat down and really looked at it, they'd see that the whole situation is better for everybody. The studio looks better. Our teachers are more enthusiastic. We have more people coming through the door. Everybody who is taking it can save money by joining our membership. But we have a number, and it's not just one student, but a number of students that at first have balked at it. For us, there's no choice. We had to change how we run our business, or we had to close the doors. That's I think is what has given us the strength and the courage and the ability to do it with kindness, to say, we so understand if you don't like the new system and you don't come anymore. We will miss you. We enjoyed having you here. You can't be replaced here, but we have to do this.
Right. And actually, it's funny how in many different ways this is coming up in my life, and it's usually involving money. Like money is like the big one, right? And I have a YouTube channel, Adventure Archives.
Oh yeah.
bit.ly/Adventure Archives. Check it out. Or youtube.com/Adventure Archives. I'll plug it every time.
Patreon something.
Oh, patreon.com/adventure, but that's what I'm about to get to.
Oh, okay.
So we launched this page. It's called a Patreon. What it lets people do is people who like the show and want to contribute to the show, they can pay money every time we release a major video. And they can pay however much they want. So like if they want to just pay $2, well, $2 is the floor. But if they pay $2, they get to watch the episode 2 weeks early. Okay? If you don't want to pay, you can just watch it when it comes out. Before we launched it, I had a good feeling that the response was going to be really good. Unlike most YouTube videos, our comments are really nice. We have very few people who are like mean or haters, like all that stuff. We have a few people who hit the dislike button. I'm just like, why would you do that? But anyway, so we have one guy who goes, oh man, it was really weird because it was like, it's just this complete misunderstanding of how money works and how things get made. Okay. So he goes, I enjoyed watching your hikes. Oh, he said, so seriously, unsubscribe time. So if you're a subscriber on YouTube, that means you get updates, right? So if you unsubscribe, that means you no longer see the video. After we posted the announcement, he goes, seriously, it's unsubscribe time. I've enjoyed watching your hikes. It's you guys' right to make or to ask for money to do this, but I'm not going to be a part of it. Basically, that's what he said. And so we sent him a reply and basically said, look, if this has value to you, then by all means donate. First of all, it's voluntary. Second of all, because you can still see it for free after we release it on the actual release date. But it's also this is kind of a separate topic, but tangentially. Well, let me get to this. So we sent him a reply, but this was a perfect opportunity for us to say we're standing our ground. That's the big one. We're not doing anything wrong. I know when you get opposition, I think that's the thing is you feel like you're doing something wrong when somebody opposes what you're saying. But if you know what you're doing is right, or at least to the best of your knowledge, you know what you're doing is right, that opposition should not turn your thought into, oh, maybe I am doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. That's happened in other instances of my life, which I can get into later. But like that happens. It's like when I get opposition from something, I'm like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. What am I doing? Like, so. But this was our opportunity, and I was ready for it. I was really glad that the guy commented so early because I was waiting for anybody to oppose us asking for money for this thing that we put in hundreds of hours of work into and offer for free, or more or less free. We've made like $300 in ad money over a year, so that's not something you can live off of. But as soon as he posted, I was like, okay, this is our opportunity. Don't feel like we're doing something wrong. Don't like suddenly change course. Just explain to him the reasons why we're doing it and say you can be on board or not. We won't have any hard feelings either way, but this is what we're doing, which is exactly what we did. And it was great. And I was like, the truth has set me free. Like, yeah. I wish I had been doing this. I wish somebody told me this when I was 12 years old, like, well, even younger, like, and just ingrained this into me. You don't have to be a mean person. You just you stand your ground, especially if you think you're doing the right thing.
You say your truth and you stick with it. You don't let someone take your truth away just because they're unhappy with it and how it matches up with their situation, their life. You probably didn't get told that when you're younger because I was not where I am today when you were young. I've grown a lot. You've grown a lot. Everybody grows, and I don't even regret that because if I taught you that when you were little, we would definitely not be having these really cool discussions that you and I have pretty regularly if we'd been talking about them since then. Maybe we'd be doing something even cooler. I don't know, but I really am enjoying this at this time. Plus, I do think that there are a lot of our friends and our students and our family and strangers in the world that are listening to the podcast. I think people find value in this, in that we all have some of that. Even those that are the most aggressive in pushing for their way. You can almost, if you stop for a moment, you can almost see that in the back of their thoughts or the back of their minds that they're like, I know I'm being almost rude and trying to convince this. And sometimes they are being rude. They're just being mean and they're trying to force their way. But part of that, it's because they don't believe that if they just stated their position without that aggression, that you would
say yes.
Yeah, you would ever agree with them. And a lot of what we call discussion about topics doesn't end up being discussion. It's persuasion. We're both trying to persuade the other instead of saying, okay, so here's my position. I'm really curious. What's your position?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me how you think that's different. And then I can evaluate that and say, oh, maybe you convinced me, or no, you didn't convince me, but I can see how you think that. And you should keep doing that. You should keep living your life that way, or whatever the issue is. But it doesn't fit me where I am in my life, and I'm going to do this. But that doesn't make one of us right and one of us wrong. It makes us different.
Right.
And that's a really hard skill.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, so in romantic relationships, especially, this is the huge hurdle that I think a lot of people have. So I know somebody who is in a, what's the word for monogamous relationship? Mm-hmm. And one of the people wants to be in a polygamous relationship. And so the one who wants to be a polygamist doesn't want to offend or like ruin that relationship. So they're not being true to themselves because they're trying to be in a monogamous relationship instead of just being like, I need to be polygamous, right? Like whatever that means. They're not married or anything.
Yeah.
But it's really like you have to be true to yourself. And you have to, that is the hardest thing. It's like, especially like if you love somebody, right? You want them to be everything they can be, and you want to be everything you can be. But when you have something that's diametrically opposed like that, it's you're both gonna be like, oh crap, well, that's not good because this relationship is not gonna be the same as it was before. But you have to do that to be true to yourself, you know.
Yeah. And if you aren't true to yourself, you're probably kidding yourself unless you grow and change, and then suddenly that's not what you want anymore.
Right.
But if you force yourself to be anything that you're not, especially if you try to do it with brute force, it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
It's like we've talked about it before. Like you wind up the propeller on that little airplane with the rubber band, and the more you wind it and keep it from going back, the tighter and faster. When it breaks loose, it really goes.
Yeah.
So there's no point in thinking that you can do that. Instead, you either have to make a decision that this relationship is not appropriate at this time. Mm-hmm. Neither person's right, neither person's wrong, and you can have great love and affection for that person, but you can't be in the relationship you wanted to be in because either you're the polygamist or the monogamist and the other person's not what you are.
Right, yeah.
Or, well, I think that truly is really the only choice at that time. That doesn't mean that sometime you won't be back together again.
Yeah, yeah.
Or that you might meet another person that wants to be let's say you're the polygamist. The other person wants to be in a monogamous relationship. You meet them 20 years from now. Maybe you've had all the experiences that you want to have, and now the experience that you want is to be true to one person always. And now that's your truth. Well, then that's a perfect relationship for you.
Right.
I think the thing that we don't teach our children as they're growing up is that all relationships, romantic or not, whenever you meet someone, that's your opportunity to get to know them and decide if that should be a long-term relationship or not.
Yeah.
And that it's okay for it not to be.
Well, see, for me, I think like the big hurdle is like there's a chemical bond too. Like, in male-female relationships more, or just like any type of like
romantic relationship.
Yeah, romantic relationship. It's no longer just about like, do we fit like personality-wise? It's like sometimes you can chemically bond and like you fit, but mentally or not mentally, personality-wise, it's like, well, this doesn't fit quite as well. And that's honestly my theory is for why the divorce rate is so high. Is there's two parts of your brain. There's the reptile brain and there's the prefrontal cortex, the outside brain. What do they call that? Human brain? I don't know.
The middle one, oh, crappy doodles. This microphone keeps getting in my way. The reptilian brain, the mammalian brain is the intuitive connection kind of brain, and then your rational, your neocortex is where you make the rational decisions.
So yeah, there's the inside stuff, and then there's your rational decision-making brain. And those just get caught up because like just what you want out of life, right? Like people have such vastly different wants out of life. But like your reptile brains, those are very simple. They both want the same thing, and that's very easy to connect to somebody else. Like, you want that? I want that. Okay, cool. Let's do that is without going into any detail. But anyway, so I just read this article recently, and there's a PG version, and then there's a G-rated. There's an R version, and there's a G-rated version. But anyways, the G-rated one's called "Don't Be a Wuss." How to stop being a wuss. And it basically was saying is like, stop not being yourself. Like, just stop it. Stop being afraid somebody's gonna make fun of you. And like, this is my number one life problem. Like, literally number one life problem. But what people don't know, like, this is, if you're watching or listening right now, I did not dance from the time I was 12 till 22 years old. And it was because I was embarrassed to do it. Like, literally did not. Like, now I can be like a completely myself, actually. I was going to say like a complete goofball on stage, but that's just me. But I literally held that in. And the worst part about that is that it made me less likable. It had the opposite effect. I was trying not to be made fun of, to the point that not only did I not get made fun of, I got just like completely ignored or disliked. I don't know if disliked. It's probably ignored is the better word. It's just like you're irrelevant. When you're not yourself, you're irrelevant, man. Because you're you're just playing it safe all the time. Just like, the article's great. I'm going to link to it in the podcast if I remember. But it's like that stupid shirt you're wearing, right? Guess who cares about that? No one. Maybe you do, but guess who does? Nobody else. But I'm sure it's programming. It's definitely programming. I remember I had this yellow coat I bought in middle school. I was in 8th grade. It was a great coat, man. I loved it. But I was like, oh, this is kind of bright. I hope nobody says anything at school. And of course, Ryan Turner, I'm calling him out. If you're watching it, Ryan Turner, I'm calling you out. I'm walking down the hallway, and then he says, oh, he looks like a bee. And I was like, oh, God. It's like I finally had the courage to do it, and then my fear comes to fruition. Now, if I had the wherewithal to be like, that doesn't matter. This is my opportunity to get stronger. I'm like, yeah, I look like a bee. I look cool, don't I? Or whatever, you know? But the article is basically saying, like, it's got to stop. Like, if you want to do anything in your life, not even if you want to do anything, if you want to be the best version of yourself that you can be, you've got to stop worrying about what other people think.
Yes.
And like, you might make a mistake, and you might make somebody mad, and you might do something stupid that actually is not in your best intentions. But you got to get over that too and be like, well, I made a mistake. I'm not a bad person for it. And
yeah, instead of thinking everything that you do, well, first of all, we've said this, and all these things sort of lead back to all the same kinds of things. But we've said, just because someone else says something about you doesn't make it true.
Oh, that's true.
When they have an opinion about something, that is their opinion. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't have to have any value for you at all. You can take it in, and if it changes your opinion, but you've actually thought about whether it is a valid point, that's one thing. I remember I dated someone once, and I bought a dress that had a leopard print on it, which I really liked, and he did not. And every time I wore it, he'd go, but I really don't like that dress. I'm like, well, I'm not wearing it for you. I'm wearing it for me because I like the way that I feel in it. I like the way that I look in it, and I'm going to wear it.
All right.
Same way with your coat. But many things are like that, and it's just being yourself. Well, just that you said, I want to go back to what you said about then you just got ignored because you were being so careful not to be yourself. Well, what if someone had not ignored you and fell in love with you being that person who didn't dance? And then suddenly your dance broke loose. That person has fallen in love with someone who doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Never existed, but was being twisted up because you were definitely a rubber band twisted pretty hard, because when you let loose, you really let loose.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, too, because I think like especially in romantic relationships, and especially if you're kind of like a late bloomer like I was. This is, and I read an email. I read another article that was talking about how nice guys, like late bloomer nice guys, right? They fall into the same trap of like, and I think it's basically boils down to you're so excited you finally got a girlfriend that like you start trying to like twist yourself to like make it work because you're like, oh, I got this. I don't want to let it go. And I think just on a general level, everybody kind of has that problem in the sense that you are with somebody and you've invested a lot of time into it, or you may have not, or you just really want to be with that person because you're like, oh, they're really attractive, or we should be really compatible or whatever. But you just keep not making it work, and then you're trying to twist yourself into something you're not. But man, like you always know the truth. Like, I mean, you don't always know the truth, but for yourself, you always know what you're really thinking. You can lie to yourself. Like, you can be like, oh, I'm not going to that party because I'm tired. You're not going to that party because you're scared. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm talking about like for me and for instance.
No. I've had plenty of
or
those.
Or whatever, like, or I'm not going to that. I'm not doing this because this situation's awkward and I don't want to be in this awkward situation. I think this is actually a realization I came to like a few years ago, but I don't think I've still put it into practice yet, which is that you can lie to other people all you want, okay? Like if you're going to lie, just might as well just lie to other people. But do not lie to yourself because it is really dumb to lie to yourself because
it doesn't work.
The only thing that changes is your internal dialogue. Your actual feeling is exactly the same. It's like you're saying like, oh, I don't like peaches. You like peaches. I don't like peaches. You like peaches. I know you like peaches. We just ate one yesterday. Or whatever it is. Let me give a good example. Like, just like the party one. That's a perfect example. You're like, oh yeah, I'm tired and I got to get up early tomorrow. I used to do this with pushy friends all the time. They're like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And I'd give them all these excuses. I should have just been like, I don't want to. And like, you can keep pushing me, but I'm not going to do it. And it's like kind of exciting for me right now because like I'm really committed and like ready to start doing this to where if somebody asks me to do something, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm wrong, but no.
Well, my friend Joy.
Yeah.
Joy has taught me the lesson of being direct and honest better than anybody that I could ever have asked for, because from the very first time that I met her, it was actually, she was pregnant, about to deliver her second child, Kate, and the guy I was dating at that time, we went to their house and dropped off something that he had borrowed, and Joy's husband said, well, Joy's going to deliver this week. This is the last chance I get to take her out before she has the baby, and all of our friends are busy. Would you guys like to go? And we laughed really hard because we weren't their friends, but and it was so direct and so honest that I just went, yeah, sure. Went to meet her, or meet them, had dinner with them, had a great time. We've become really good friends since then. But I remember shortly after that, we called to ask if they wanted to go do something else. And Joy just said, no, I really don't like that. I don't want to do that. And I was like, wow, that was so easy for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, now I will never call and ask you to do that again. I don't remember what it was. The lesson was so quickly learned that from then on, I could just, if she called me and asked me to do something and I really didn't want to do it for whatever the reason was, I could just say, oh no, I really don't want to do that. That's not my thing. Or I don't want to do that today because I'm just feeling lazy and don't want to get out.
Yeah, no, it's
so
weird.
Much better.
I think in that particular instance, it was a little bit easier. I think she would have done it regardless, but you're also not a pushy friend. How in a case where you're with a pushy friend and the pushy friend is being like, why aren't you doing this, huh? And it's like making you explain yourself. All my life, like this is...
Yeah.
I have been
You're getting to the crux of it here.
Yeah, I've been explaining myself to everybody all my life.
Justifying every decision you make.
Every single decision. Like, oh, I'm doing this because of this. I'm doing this because of this. And then I have to go like 10 layers deep until they're satisfied. And like, I'm just so done with it. I'm so done with it. It's like beyond the pale. the paling surrounding our small village. It is beyond it. I don't really have a point to that other than that. Like,
No,
this
that
is
is. I think that
realization
is. I think that's your major point of this whole discussion on conflict is that conflict does not have to be resolved by you justifying your choices in life. Sometimes your choices are just your choices, and you get to say, nope, or
Right.
yes, or I'll give you a good example on something dorky, which I have plenty of dorky things that I could talk about, but I have loved Elvis Presley since I was very young. And those of you who went to the house that I don't live in anymore, my whole basement was decorated with Elvis Presley memorabilia. But there was a time, in fact, my whole married life while I was married, that I wouldn't bring an Elvis Presley thing out. I wouldn't watch Elvis Presley movies because so many people just thought it was so ridiculous. And it was actually a colleague at work at Duke who said, she's like, "Oh my God, I love Elvis Presley." And I was like, "Oh my God, so do I." And she's telling me about all these Elvis Presley things that she does. I'm like, how come it's so easy for her to just say that and be that? And then I was like, well, I'm bringing out all my stuff and I'm collecting more now. Like, there's Elvis Presley stuff here in the studio. And I'm not at all embarrassed about it.
Right.
But I was for, 30 years.
Oh my God, dude. I was embarrassed about my musical choices. And like, it's kind of pointless to blame it on something, but I blame it on school. Like, the people in school, like, oh my God, man, like, they would make fun of me for doing anything outside of the norm. And all of my interests are outside of the norm. So no wonder, like, I didn't want to tell anybody about it. I love video game music. It is, to me, the best form of music. There's nothing better. Like, it is the purest form of music. It sounds great. The composers are amazing. Like, it's not boop, bop, boop. That boop, bop, boop stuff is great too. But, like, people have no idea what video game music is like. But I do. And it is my favorite music. And I am so unashamed of it now that when I look back on, like, when I was a kid, like, it took me a long time to just realize I don't like any of this other music. I like this music, and I don't have to be ashamed of it, and I can be super proud of it, in fact. And I was talking to Andrew, my cousin, and I was talking about how, as an adult, it's funny how much it gets reversed. When you're a kid, you get made fun of it. You get made fun of for your weird interests. When you're an adult, you're like, oh, you're so interesting. You got all these weird interests. Except for video games, people still don't understand video games. You talk to people now, and there's this stigma attached to it. Like, oh, you're wasting all your time playing video games, and like, oh, why do you like video games? What are you, 12? And I still get that fight or flight defensive response.
So you aren't quite comfortable with it the way you are with your music.
Right. Well, no, I'm not comfortable with that one yet, but I might be now that I've said it out loud. But it'll take practice because I've been doing it the other way so long. But yeah, it's like it's weird. Why would you need to belittle my interests for any reason?
Yeah. Well, I think
unless my interest was like, cutting people or something. Oh, I love stabbing people. Well, you don't like that? I love stabbing people.
Yeah, I don't know all the reasons why people belittle others, but in general, I think it's their effort to make themselves feel better. And sometimes when you have great passions about anything that's normal or not normal, even just having that passion, people who don't have passion, or I'll take that back. People who don't know what their passions are, or they've so repressed themselves that they have no idea what makes them happy, they are jealous of that feeling. And the best way for them that they know how to deal with that is to say, it's not a good thing, so I don't have to worry that I don't have a passion like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think that happens a lot more than people realize. Because if you tell someone who's very passionate about whatever it is they do, like someone can tell me about video games all the time. I don't have any interest in it, but I find them really interesting when you're talking about it. But I can only stop and listen to that because I know I got plenty of my stuff. Mm-hmm, I can just enjoy what you enjoy. I think we even listened to something last night. What was some Metal Gear Solid 5?
It was a Metal Gear analysis.
Yeah.
The game's not even out yet, and there's a guy on YouTube who analyzes the trailers and stuff. And I spent hours this weekend watching those analysis, and I was like, oh, tell me more.
Well, and I was watching it. We just watched one about some hour of gameplay he had, and one mission that he went on, and a little bit about the story that he couldn't tell, but that he'd listened to it, and what kind of weapons and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And by the time I was finished, I was like, I can't wait till this game comes out. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to do anything, but I want to watch now for the things that he talked about. I was so excited. And it was just, 15 or 20 minutes that we listened to that. But I think that's the problem when people are insecure themselves or don't know themselves, don't know their own purpose, don't know their own passions. They are not enjoying their life. It's a lot easier to put someone else down for enjoying their lives than to figure out how to enjoy it yourself. And it doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they're pretty close. They have a pretty small life right now. I remember in your Adventure Archives podcast when you said that to Andrew about, Andrew knows a lot about nature and he sees this plant, what it's used for. He knows what's poisonous, this or that. And you said, isn't it amazing when you were a kid, if you told people that you were interested in plants and nature and that kind of stuff, kids would have just gone, oh, you are a dork and you're a geek and blah, blah, blah. That's, we spend a lot of time pretending that we have all these freedoms in our country and that we all want to be individuals, but then we shame each other for not being exactly what we are, which is so ridiculous, but it's true. But I have a lot of compassion for that because I think it's a lot of pain that's being bottled up. A lot of twisting of the rubber band that really wants to break loose. And instead of breaking loose, it just finds some other little outlet to let a little pressure off that day.
Yeah.
And I do feel sorry for that.
Well, I mean, you could just, repression in general is just like, you can see so many examples of it, but I don't want to really get into those examples that I just thought of, but like just people repress themselves and it's going to come out.
Yeah.
Like your true nature will come out.
Yeah, that's your inner conflict.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, it is. It's your inner conflict. You've got what is your true self, and you've learned all of these ways of stifling it or changing it to something that someone has told you is a better thing than what you really are.
Right.
And it's like a war going on all the time. My advice is let the inner self win. Just give up the other stuff.
Just give it up.
Just give it up.
And just deal with the pain, man. Like when somebody makes fun of you, be like, why am I so upset about this? Like, is it just some past thing? Like I didn't feel accepted before and I just like, no, man, the only person who has to accept you is you. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you don't have any other backup, if you think you're doing the right thing, like deep down, like obviously there's those layers on top that are like, oh, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Deep down, you think you're doing the right thing. Stick with that feeling. Do not give it up. Hold on to that like it's your lifeline, like it's a ladder to $1 million, whatever it is. I had a good thought. Go ahead.
It reminded me of something that we talked about Anthony DeMello before, and in his book, The Way to Love, and how he says you should be so busy making sure that you're improving yourself and being your real self. You don't care what anybody else is doing or saying. But he has another statement, which is, and this might be an actual quote, or it might be how I condensed it, but he basically says, what other people think of you is none of your business. Give that up. Your business is living the best life that's true to your purpose, whatever you've decided that might be, as you can, and to do it in a loving and kind way so that you are part of this world community, your little community, your relationship, your bigger community, the world, the universe, whatever. But what other people think or say about you really shouldn't have any impact. That's their interpretation of reality. It doesn't have to be yours.
Right. Well, just before I forget this, because I remembered what I was going to say, is that I can remember it now. What other people think about you, if you're doing the best you can, right? And you're pretty sure, to the best of your knowledge, that you're not doing anything bad. You don't need to worry about what other people think about you. You only need to worry if you're like doing something you know is bad and you're doing it anyway. but even then you don't need to worry about it. But I mean, that is the only time that shame, that self-shame is justified, is if you know you're doing something that's going to hurt somebody else and you're doing it anyway. But 99% of the time, that shame does not come from a response like that. It's coming from something else. Mm-hmm. Like you just feel like you're doing something bad because other people say you shouldn't be doing it.
You're not good enough. Something's wrong, and it usually doesn't come from within. It comes from without, but you soak it up and make it your own. And that's what you want to not do. Doesn't mean that other people's opinions are not valid. Doesn't mean that they don't have value to it. Sometimes, like, you believe you're doing exactly the right thing, you're communicating something in the right way, but enough people say the same thing, especially if they say it in a kind and loving way, that you can absorb that and go, oh, now I see that when I do that, it makes other people feel this way. And I don't need to do it that way. I can do it this way and still be true to myself. So it's not that you just, whatever everybody else thinks doesn't matter, but you really have to filter it through your true self, your true purpose, and learn that it is okay to not agree and to not accept other people's opinions as your own. Just because someone says something doesn't make it true. Might be true, might not be.
Right.
So.
Well, okay. So what I was thinking earlier is like, this is just kind of like a cool thing that is, so I'm so excited about finally being able to stand up for myself that now when those opportunities come, I don't shrink in fear from them and then just be like, oh God, why did this happen again? Why can't people just be the way that I want them to be?
Yeah.
Instead, it's like I'm excited that opportunity has come up, and I'm like, I get practice, and I can finally act the way that I want to act and not feel bad about it and stand my ground. And like, I think that is, if we can do that, take that into other areas of our life, every time we have a weakness or just something we're working on, right? Something that we're not very good at. Every time that lack of strength gets exposed, it's so great when you can flip it on its head and be like, this is great, I'm practicing. Instead of just being like, oh crap, I got to do this again and I hate this. Mm-hmm. So like, instead of dreading, and this is funny, I made this analogy a long time ago. I never really put it into practice, but it's like kind of like leveling up your character in an RPG, which stands for role-playing game. So like in a role-playing game, you go fight battles. And as you fight battles, your characters gain experience and then they gain more abilities and skills and stuff. But that's the same thing you're doing in real life, right? So if you're just always running away from battles, you never get any experience points.
Yeah, how would a role-playing game be if every time you came to a battle, you just ran away?
Well, no, you can do that.
Yeah, but you'd never level up.
Yeah, and then it makes it really hard to fight the bosses. Like, it makes it really hard to progress through the game. It's a perfect analogy. It's like such a perfect analogy because every time you shrink away from conflict, you don't grow. And then you can't get to where you want to go. You're like, I want to get there. Like,
so maybe the RPG makers had some experience in life and saw that that's how it works, and trying to help you play that role until you get to it.
Yeah, maybe that's why people like it so much, is because that's the one area where they can just do it. You don't feel any fear in an RPG, right? You go to fight the boss, you're like, I'm not afraid of fighting the boss. I might fail. Like 20 times. I'll just keep going. In real life, it's the same way. We just, for some reason, we're just so scared of failing that we don't do it.
Yeah. One of my friends once kind of helped me try to take that fear to its logical conclusion. Like, okay, so what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid they're going to reject me. Okay, so what happens if they reject you? Well, then I won't have any friends. Well, okay, what if you don't have any friends? Then what? Well, then I'm going to be lonely. Well, what if you're lonely? And everything until then it all boiled down to is, well, because I'm going to be alone and I can't survive alone, I'm going to die. Clearly,
that is basically what it all boils down to.
It all boils down to, and I think that brings us back full circle to the discussion we had last week on our purpose in life, which I firmly, down to my very cells, believe is to connect with everybody else, to not feel separate from every other person. We are all one. We're all part of one thing, and our nose is not better than our eye. And so when we're fearful of something, if you take it all the way to its logical conclusion, is that afraid we're not going to connect. We're going to live this life and die with not ever having had anything meaningful and lovely happen in your life. Well, clearly everybody's had some experiences of something, so we can let that fear go because it won't happen.
Right.
We've had some connections, even if it was just when we were infants and someone held you in a loving way. We've had a connection, so everybody can forget that. That's my edict for today. No, I'm just kidding.
Here's another interesting random thought that I originally heard this from Alan Watts, but we are, so in the same way an apple tree makes apples, the earth makes humans. So we are all from the same tree, basically. So it's just absurd that we act like we're enemies. Like, if you know what's really funny is all the conflict in the world has been brought about by us, like as humans. Like sometimes a natural disaster occurs, but that's like the times when we band together the most.
Oh yeah,
that's the times when we most act like good humans. Every other time, it's just like a bunch of spoiled kids in a room fighting over toys, and it's like, wow, you guys are just like. If there's a God, he's going to come in one day, just kick the door open and be like, what's going on here? And then we're all just going to look over and be like, oh, we was just, I don't care what you
He started it. That's what we're going to do. Yeah.
Actually, he'll be like, it'll probably be more like, oh God, guys, what are you doing? Put the toys down, come with me. Like, let me show you what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, this is much better, right? Yeah, that was actually we could end here unless you got more thoughts.
I have tons more thoughts, but not.
Let's keep going then, because we can go for another little bit.
Well, if we're going to talk about big conflicts, I think that you really hit it on the head, and that is, which is why I think our purpose is to see that we're not separate. We spend so much more time looking for the differences, and I wouldn't even call it celebrating. We exploit those differences, often to the detriment of one group or one person or one group of people to gain an advantage. And I think it all stems from thinking that we aren't connected and that we aren't one thing and that there's not enough to go around. I really believe that we have this fundamental fear that there's not enough to go around. But somehow we have to change that in order to get through that conflict. Those big conflicts in the world is that, yeah, there's enough. There's enough.
Yeah, that is the kind of the fundamental problem, is that we don't think there's enough. But a lot of the things we're doing are making there not be enough. Just like the food we're wasting. Mm-hmm. Like I watched part of a documentary about, no, it was a John Oliver skit. Or John Oliver segment. He was talking about misshapen fruit. It can't be sold at the supermarket because people are like, oh, that's ugly fruit. I'm not buying that. So they just throw it away. So like all this food, we're just throwing it away because it's too ugly and it's not sellable. But
no, it's just like the food that's left over in restaurants.
Yeah.
That people, it's not cool to take it home in a doggy bag.
That's bizarre. That has to just not. I felt like that has gone away for the most part.
No, it hasn't. Not. No, it hasn't.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No. I've been in recent times. I've been out for dinner with people that they hardly ate anything on their plate and just decide, oh no, I'm done.
That's so absurd to me. Like it's like somebody's eating that. I don't care. Somebody's eating it. Like the one consolation is that the bacteria will probably eat it. But if it gets put in a landfill, then it doesn't get eaten. That's bad too, because the bacteria can't decompose it apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Landfills, like it needs aerobic bacteria to decompose.
Oh, because it's covered up. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Actually, I think we should end it here because
I think so too.
I'm getting really hungry.
Okay. Well, good reason to close. And big group conflict is a little bit. It's a long. It's a long topic.
Any conclusions? That
I would just say that the key to resolving conflict in a way that feels good to both sides or all the sides is to be able to be true and every person in the conflict to be true and honest in themselves, to themselves and with themselves, and understand that some resolution of conflict doesn't require one person to change their mind. It allows everybody to hold their own and to still be okay with each other.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's the big
sometimes
key.
like the deal won't work out, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it's just, in general, conflict has to be, we got to take the fight or flight battle out of it, you know? Like, because when I tell somebody no, and then they say, oh, why not? And then I'm like, okay, let's fight. Well, just physiologically, that's kind of what happens, you know? I think that battle needs to be taken out of it, and it needs to just be like, look, it's like, you've clearly thought it through. I've thought it through. We differ in opinion, so we're just going to have to either find a compromise or go our separate ways. And I think you got to there's different instances where it'll require different skills, but
Yeah. And I think we should try to be what you are now, which is excited every time you have the opportunity to practice it. And if you can be aware that it's happening, especially, and you'll know it if you get that, I'm going to fight, I'm going to fight or
that
flight.
sweat, and then you're like, ugh.
I don't want to do this. Instead of being, really trying to keep from having to do it, to be excited. Oh, here's another opportunity. I get to build some emotional muscle to be able to hold my own, not make the other person into someone making a mistake or being a bad person. Just, I'm holding my own, you hold your own, and we'll disagree. And I think that's the best and greatest way to do it and to grow from it.
I think that was perfectly well said. So I think that does it for today's episode. Today is, I usually like to put the date at the beginning, but I forgot.
August 3rd.
And it's Monday?
Yeah, Monday, August 3rd.
Monday, August 3rd. We usually release on Wednesday, but I'm going to be in Yosemite.
You lucky duck.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, see you
All right,
next week.
See you.